Hello BSAD15 students. This is Professor Stevenson. Welcome to this short lesson about comma usage. The purpose of this video is to review rules for comma usage, to then apply those rules, and finally, to check your comprehension and integration of comma rules. The first thing you need to know is that there are 3 rules for comma usage. Pause the video for 30 seconds or so and see if you can recall those 3 rules. Before I introduce the first comma usage rule, we need to review a few terms to help you better understand what's to come. There are 2 types of clauses in the English language. They are independent and dependent clauses. Independent clauses can stand alone. They don't need anything else to be grammatically or structurally complete. Here are 2 examples. I don't like cheesecake, and Henry bought enough groceries for 2 weeks. Both of these sentences are complete and make sense. Dependent clauses, however, cannot stand alone. They need an independent clause to make them structurally complete. For example, if I say, although I like cheese, you're going to notice immediately that the sentence is incomplete. Another example of a dependent clause is, when you went to the store, again, you can immediately recognize that this clause is missing something. In sum, independent clauses can stand alone, while dependent clauses require an independent clause to be complete. The next 2 terms that will help you understand the comma rules to come are adjective and adverb. For some of you, you know exactly what these rules are and how to use them. For others, you've definitely heard your English teacher mention them, but you might not know specifically how to define them. An adjective modifies or describes a noun. For example, strong, as in, my dog Winston is very strong. I could also say, Winston is a strong dog. The second sentence helps you more directly see the relationship between the adjective strong and the noun dog. An adverb modifies or describes verbs, adverbs, and adjectives. An example of an adverb is gently, as in, though my dog Winston is strong, he gently snuggles up to my daughter. In this sentence, gently is modifying the verb snuggle. Now we're ready to move on to our 3 comma rules. The first rule is that we use commas to add extra, non-defining, or non-essential information to an independent clause. Let's take a look at the first example. Since 2004, Swedish prisoner numbers have fallen from 5,722 to 4,500 out of a population of 9.5 million. Can you identify the dependent and independent clause within this sentence? The sentence begins with a dependent clause and time signal since 2004. The rest of the sentence is our independent clause. Whenever we use time signals or introductory phrases, such as since 2004, or when I was little, or after I wake up, for example, we need a comma. Take a look at the rest of the example sentences. Can you identify the dependent and independent clauses? I suggest you pause the video for a few minutes while you consider the example sentences. On this slide, I've highlighted the dependent clauses in these sentences. So in example number 1, the dependent clause is an introductory phrase. In example 2, we have an introductory dependent clause. In example 3, we have however with an independent clause. In example 4, we have an independent clause that functions as a noun phrase. And in number 5, we have the verb phrase, he says. These are all extra, non-defining information. The second comma usage rule has to do with coordination, and specifically coordinating conjunctions. If you're not familiar with the term coordinating conjunctions, they're simply the words we use to connect clauses and ideas, and you'll see them on the right-hand side of this slide. The acronym FANBOYS contains the coordinating conjunctions for the English language. They stand for and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. When we connect two or more independent clauses, we do so with a coordinating conjunction and a comma, as in example sentences 1 and 2. We also use coordinating conjunctions between listed items, as in example 3. Let's read the first example together. The government sets goals in a yearly letter of intent, and then the responsibility of the work is entirely ours. In this example, the coordinating conjunction and is connecting the two independent clauses. Now let's read example sentence 3. These include forcing prisoners to wear uniforms, banning books being sent to prisoners, and turning off cell lights at 10:30 p.m. in young offender institutions. In this sentence, we're listing ideas or changes made in prisons. Now at this point, I'm guessing that some of you are wondering whether you have to always use a comma before the coordinating conjunction and. The answer is no, as long as you're only connecting nouns. For example, Sweden and Norway both have progressive social policies. Sweden and Norway are both countries, and therefore nouns. And so in this sentence, we are simply connecting together two nouns, not clauses. So listen again. Sweden and Norway both have progressive social policies. Take a few minutes to carefully reread the examples and the remaining example, paying close attention to the use of the coordinating conjunctions and commas. Our third and final comma usage rule is that we use commas to separate adjectives or adverbs. This helps us string together a series of descriptive words to add emphasis and detail to our writing. Let's look at the first example. Prisoners are now expected to live in a harsher, more punitive environment. Can you identify the adjectives and or adverbs? In this sentence, harsher and punitive are adjectives, while more functions as an adverb. We do not need a comma between more and punitive because more modifies punitive. Take a minute to read through the final example sentence, again paying attention to the use of adverbs, adjectives, and commas. In sum, we have 3 rules for comma usage. Number 1 is for adding extra, non-defining information to an independent clause, as in, whatever you do in the justice sector, you have to take a long-term perspective. The second rule is with coordination, as in, the government sets goals in a yearly letter of intent, and then the responsibility for the work is entirely ours. And finally, we use commas to separate adjectives or adverbs, as in, prisoners are now expected to live in a harsher, more punitive environment. Now you're ready to test your knowledge. Print out the document titled Comma Usage from Blackboard and complete. Once you've finished, you can go to the final slide to check your answers. If you would like more information about comma usage and different ways of explaining comma usage, I would suggest the following sites. First is the Purdue OWL, next is Grammarly, and finally, Business Insider.